Before 1492, the Americas were not lost. They were not unknown. They were home to millions of people, hundreds of nations, and ancient cultures that had existed for thousands of years. But in October of that year, 3 ships crossed the Atlantic Ocean, and everything changed. This is the story of the moment Europe entered the Americas. Not a discovery, but an encounter that reshaped history forever. By the late 15th century, Europe was desperate for new routes to Asia. Spices, silk, and immense wealth flowed through dangerous land routes, controlled by powerful empires that levied heavy taxes. Christopher Columbus, a navigator from Genoa, had a radical idea. He believed he could reach Asia by sailing west, across the open Atlantic. His calculations, however, were deeply flawed. He dramatically underestimated the size of the Earth and believed the journey would be far shorter than it truly was. Despite skepticism from many experts, he secured funding from the Spanish crown, who were eager to gain an edge over their rivals. With royal backing, Columbus set sail in August 1492, gambling everything on his mistaken geography. The voyage began from Spain with 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria Letters. The journey was long, uncertain, and terrifying. Weeks turned into more than a month, with no land in sight, just an endless expanse of ocean. The crew, drawn from the ports of Spain, grew restless and fearful. Supplies were dwindling, and the farther they sailed west, the more impossible a return journey seemed. Rumors of mutiny began to spread among the sailors, who threatened to turn the ships around and head back home. Columbus had to use every bit of his authority and persuasion to keep the expedition going. Then, in the early morning hours of October 12, 1492, a lookout aboard the Pinta spotted a faint line on the horizon. It was land. But Columbus hadn't reached Asia. He had arrived in the Caribbean, landing on an island known today as part of the Bahamas. The people he encountered were the Taíno, a sophisticated society with a rich culture. They lived in organized communities, practiced advanced agriculture, and navigated the complex island chains of the Caribbean with incredible skill in large canoes. For them, this was not a new world. It was their ancestral home, a world they knew intimately. Yet, in his journal, Columbus immediately labeled the lands he saw as a new world, a name that reflected his profound misunderstanding of where he was and who he had met. For the Taíno, it was simply home. For Columbus, it was a discovery that would make him famous. The initial encounters between the Spanish sailors and the Taíno were cautious but peaceful. The Taíno people, described by Columbus as gentle and generous, approached the strange visitors with curiosity. They shared food, fresh water, and their knowledge of the local environment, offering parrots, cotton, and other goods as gifts. Columbus, however, viewed the land and its people through a completely different lens, European lens of profit and conquest. In his writings back to Spain, he focused on signs of gold, the potential for using the indigenous people as laborers. Within days of his arrival, Columbus began the process of claiming the land for Spain. He went ashore with armed men, planted the royal flag of Castile and Aragon, and performed a ceremony declaring the islands as Spanish territory. No treaties were signed. No consent was sought or given from the Taíno leaders who watched these proceedings. The act was entirely one-sided. What Europe would celebrate for centuries as an act of discovery was, in reality, the first step in a long and brutal process of colonization. The concept of private land ownership was foreign to the Taíno. couldn't have understood that this symbolic act was a claim of absolute dominion. Before long, Columbus would sail back to Spain, not just with stories of potential wealth, but with indigenous captives taken against their will, presented to the Spanish court as proof of his findings. Columbus's arrival and return to Europe opened the floodgates for a permanent European presence in the Americas. More ships and more colonists soon followed, bringing with them not just weapons and a desire for gold, but also something far more deadly: diseases. Smallpox, measles, and influenza, which had been common in Europe for centuries, were completely unknown in the Americas. The indigenous populations had no immunity. The pathogens spread like wildfire, moving faster than the colonists themselves, often wiping out entire communities before a European even set foot in their villages. The population decline that followed was nothing short of catastrophic. This moment, the arrival of Columbus, marked the beginning of one of the greatest demographic collapses in human history, as millions perished from disease, violence, and displacement in the decades that followed. For Europe, the year 1492 came to symbolize opportunity, expansion, and the dawn of a new age of global power. It fueled an era of exploration and empire building that would enrich European nations beyond their wildest dreams. For the indigenous peoples of the Americas, however, 1492 marked the beginning of an unimaginable catastrophe. It was the start of a period defined by the loss of land, the loss of autonomy, and the loss of life on a massive scale. This wasn't a single, isolated event that happened on one day in October. It was the first chapter in a story of conquest, resistance, and cultural transformation that would span centuries and whose consequences are still felt today. It was a turning point that set two worlds on a collision course. In recent years, historians and the public have increasingly challenged the traditional narrative and the very word discovery. You cannot discover lands that are already inhabited by millions of people. You can only encounter them. To call it a discovery is to erase the presence and history of those who were already there. 1492 was not the birth of America. It was the moment the Americas were forcibly drawn into a new global system of empire, trade, and power, with devastating consequences for its original inhabitants. It was an encounter that fundamentally and permanently altered the course of history for everyone on the planet. The arrival of Columbus in the Caribbean was a beginning, but it was not a neutral one. It set in motion forces of colonization, conflict, and exchange that would reshape the Americas and the world forever. To truly understand the world we live in today, we must continue this story and explore what happened next. If you want to explore the conquest, the collapse of empires, and the incredible stories of resistance that followed, make sure to watch our next documentary on post-Columbus America. Subscribe for more untold history. Like this video if it expanded your perspective. And let us know in the comments, how should we remember 1492 today? History lives on through our understanding of it. Thanks for watching.